Not every remix makes the original better, but the ones that matter force you to decide what you were really listening to all along.
That is quite the opening line.
Right. That line just, it completely stopped me in my tracks today.
I can see why.
Because when a massive legacy institution decides to change its fundamental structure, we usually view it through this lens of cold, hard engineering.
Right, like fixing a glitch.
Exactly. You find an inefficiency in the system, you reroute the operational pipes, update the software, and theoretically, well, the problem is solved.
Very sure.
But when you step into the world of sports, specifically a sport carrying over a century of cultural weight, that clean engineering approach just completely collapses.
It really does. You aren't just patching a bug in a business model at that point.
No, you're messing with an institution's soul.
Which turns a simple logistical update into, frankly, a diagnostic nightmare.
A total nightmare.
Because the moment you attempt to modernize a framework that is entirely predicated on its history, every logistical choice becomes a philosophical declaration.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
We're glad you're here.
Whether you are catching up on the absolute latest dynamics in the sports industry, or maybe you're preparing for a high-level discussion on organizational change management.
Or maybe you're just bringing an insatiable curiosity to how massive legacy brands attempt to survive in the modern world.
Yeah, whatever brought you here, you are in the perfect place to unpack this. Our focal point today is a really potent analysis titled Final Verdict, Evolution or Chaos.
Originating from the folks over at the Film Room Remix.
Right, and the mission of our deep dive today is to explore a hypothetical seismic shift currently being debated. We're talking about Major League Baseball potentially adopting a strict geographical East versus West layout for its schedule and playoffs.
But to be incredibly clear to you listening, this analysis isn't just about baseball schedules.
Not at all.
The sport serves as, like, a microcosm for a much larger universal tension.
Yeah.
The central debate we are pulling from the analysis revolves around tradition versus transformation.
It's an exploration of the intense pressure organizations face to stay culturally relevant.
And, the inherent risk of amputating your own identity just to achieve that relevance.
Exactly. So before we can understand why traditionalists fight so bitterly against these kinds of changes, I think we have to honestly examine the temptation first.
We have to look at the lure of the remix.
Right. Let's look at the what and the why of this proposed East versus West model.
Okay, let's get into it.
The analysis points out that this shift offers a cleaner structure and a familiar layout.
It explicitly names the NBA as the primary blueprint for this kind of modernization.
Yeah, and when I read about the appeal of a cleaner structure, my mind immediately went to architecture.
Oh, how so?
Well, imagine you inherit this massive, winding Victorian house.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It has these bizarre secret compartments, weird little alcoves that they don't make spatial sense.
Right, totally impractical.
And it has this sprawling floor plan that requires a map just to navigate. I mean, it possesses undeniable history, but it takes you 20 minutes just to figure out how to get from the kitchen to the study.
That's a great analogy. Because the East versus West proposal operates like a modern developer walking into that exact Victorian home and just proposing an open concept loft.
Yes. You knock down the intricate, confusing mahogany walls.
You install sleek, modular shelving. It becomes instantly readable.
Left side of the room, right side of the room, east-west.
Exactly. The analysis highlights that this layout promises clarity. It creates more intense regular season matchups.
And it makes the path to a championship feel highly direct and urgent.
Direct and urgent. That is the key phrase.
It really is. That phrase from the text, direct and urgent, it feels like the absolute defining mantra of the 21st century consumer, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We want our narratives delivered with zero friction.
Zero friction. But wait, is this entire proposal just a massive case of FOMO?
Fear of missing out.
Yeah. Like, is baseball just looking over the fence at the cultural ubiquity of the NBA, seeing how easily casual fans digest their product, and just panicking?
That's a really valid question.
So what is it exactly about the NBA's format that creates such an easy entry point for a casual audience?
Honestly,
Uh-huh.
it comes down to eliminating cognitive load.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, we live in an era of profound information overload. I mean, it's a reality that everyone listening to this right now navigates daily.
Oh, for sure. Our phones are constantly buzzing.
Right. And casual audiences will simply ignore a product that they have to decipher. The NBA operates on a remarkably binary system.
East and West.
Exactly. You have an Eastern Conference and a Western Conference.
Yeah.
The teams in the East battle each other to crown a champion. The teams in the West do the exact same thing.
And then those two champions meet in the finals.
The storyline writes itself. The media can package it into a 30-second promo.
Oh, yeah, that's so true.
A fan can look at a bracket on their phone for like 5 seconds and completely understand the stakes of the entire season.
Because the barrier to entry is virtually zero. You don't have to understand the deep nuances of the league. You literally just have to understand geography. East fights East.
And the NBA has mastered the art of relentless structural tweaking to maintain that low barrier to entry.
Right, they're always changing things up.
They really are, to keep engagement high. I mean, look at the play-in tournament they introduced.
Oh, right, where the borderline teams have to fight it out.
Yes. It essentially expands the playoff field by forcing those teams into sudden death elimination games just to secure a final playoff spot.
It manufactures instant do-or-die drama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And more recently, they instituted an in-season tournament.
Which is wild, right? A tournament in the middle of the season?
It creates a separate manufactured championship in the middle of November just to give casual fans a reason to care about early season games.
Wow. So the analysis implies that by considering an East versus West structure, baseball is basically acknowledging the undeniable commercial power of that NBA model.
A constant, urgent, easily digestible engagement model.
Yes. Man, so the lure of the remix is incredibly strong.
It is very tempting.
You knock out the old walls, you get the open concept loft, and suddenly you have this crystal clear narrative that the modern attention economy just heavily rewards.
But this brings us to the friction.
Right, the pushback.
This is where the analysis moves away from the shiny appeal of the new structure and plunges into the existential threat it poses to baseball's historical DNA.
Let's talk about that, because the text argues that baseball has fundamentally never been about keeping up.
Right. The analysis positions the sport's historical philosophy not as one of constant evolution, but of holding on.
Holding on.
Yes, it suggests the sport holds on to its history, onto its unique identity.
And onto the rather audacious premise that the game does not need to change simply because the rest of the cultural landscape is accelerating.
Exactly.
Okay, wait, let me push back on that for a second.
Go for it.
Isn't holding on just a highly romanticized, PR-friendly way of describing a dinosaur refusing to look at the meteor?
That is definitely the reformist critique, yeah.
Right. Because if we look at this through a standard business lens, if the whole world adopts a faster, more efficient methodology, and your company stubbornly folds its arms and says, no, we are holding on to our history.
You don't become noble.
No,
Yeah.
you become completely obsolete.
Well, that assumes the primary value of the product is mere utility.
Okay.
But if we view this through the lens of luxury goods or legacy branding, the calculus shifts entirely.
I'm intrigued. Give me an example.
Consider the difference between a smartwatch and a high-end mechanical watch.
Okay, yeah.
The smartwatch is infinitely more useful. It tracks your heart rate, sends emails, and it updates its software constantly to keep up with the times.
Right, it's adapting.
Exactly. Now, the mechanical watch just tells time. And honestly, it might even lose a few seconds a month.
True.
Yet the mechanical watch retains immense value, specifically because it refuses to be a smartwatch.
Oh, wow.
Its value is rooted in its intricate, historical, unchanging craftsmanship. The analysis posits that baseball's value proposition is akin to the mechanical watch.
So its refusal to look and operate like everything else is its core feature, not a bug.
Precisely.
That fundamentally reframes how we look at an audience.
How so?
Well, usually a business bends over backward to accommodate the shifting whims of the consumer, right?
Right.
But this suggests that historically, baseball has demanded the audience bend to its own rhythms. You don't get the instant gratification. You have to earn the payoff by paying attention to the slow burn.
And this philosophical war between keeping up and holding on it has defined every major structural change in the sport's history.
It's not a new fight.
Not at all. Take the introduction of the designated hitter in the American League back in the 1970s.
Oh, the DH rule. That was a huge controversy.
Massive. For a century, the rules dictated that the pitcher, the player throwing the ball, also had to take their turn hitting.
Even though pitchers are notoriously terrible hitters.
Exactly. So the reformist argument was purely about modernization and entertainment.
Remove the automatic out.
Right. Replace the pitcher in the batting order with a designated hitter, and you get more offense, more action, and a more engaged casual fan.
And the traditionalists viewed that as an absolute desecration of the game's mechanics.
It really did. Because part of the strategic beauty was the manager having to decide when to pull a pitcher who was throwing well, but whose turn to hit was coming up in a crucial late-game situation.
Ah, so the traditionalists were fighting to hold on to the complex antique architecture of the game.
Yes. And we saw the exact same philosophical bloodbath with the introduction of the wild card in the 1990s.
Oh, right. Let's talk about the wild card.
Before the wild card, if you didn't win your specific division, meaning if you weren't the absolute best team in your localized group over a massive 162-game season, you went home.
Full stop.
Full stop. It was arguably the most ruthless meritocracy in sports.
So introducing the wild card allowed non-division winners into the playoffs.
It did. It created more excitement, kept more fan bases engaged later into the season.
And mathematically increased the chances of Cinderella runs, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But traditionalists correctly identified that it fundamentally changed the math of a successful season.
It lowered the bar.
It lowered the bar. It was a step toward keeping up with the expansive playoff models of other sports.
Okay, so when the analysis warns about adopting an NBA-style East versus West format, it's saying you are implicitly surrendering the claim to timelessness.
You are. You are trading the prestige of the mechanical watch for the temporary relevance of the latest software update.
Wow, you can't be both the timeless classic and the trendy manufactured drama. You have to choose.
And the analysis takes it a step further by moving from that abstract philosophy down into the structural dirt.
The actual mechanics. Right.
It examines what actually breaks inside the machine when you force a deeply traditional endurance-based game into a slick, modern geographical bracket.
Which brings us to the mechanics of competitive imbalance.
Yeah.
Because the text delivers this devastating critique of the East versus West format. It warns that this shift risks creating fundamental imbalance and uneven paths.
Leading to a postseason where, as the text says, the journey matters more than the quality of the team taking it.
The journey matters more than the quality. When I read that, it instantly clicked for me. But not through the lens of sports.
Oh. What did it make you think of?
It made me think of reality television.
Really? Like what?
Like if you watch a show like Survivor, the premise is ostensibly to find the ultimate survivalist and strategist, right?
Right, the best of the best.
But the producers constantly introduce artificial mechanisms like arbitrary tribal swaps or bizarre geographic splits just to manufacture drama.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Suddenly, it stops being a pure test of skill. You could have an incredible, strong, brilliant competitor placed on a beach with zero resources.
And they're forced to cannibalize their own skilled teammates just to survive the week.
Exactly. Meanwhile, a completely mediocre competitor gets swapped onto a team with abundant food and a mathematical numbers advantage.
And they just coast all the way to the finale.
Right.
That is a phenomenal parallel for artificial parity.
It really made the baseball problem click for me.
Well, to understand why an East versus West bracket creates that survivor-style gauntlet in baseball, we really have to look at how the sport's baseline mechanics actually measure quality.
Walk me through that, because the season is crazy long.
It is. Baseball operates on a staggering 162-game regular season.
Which is so much longer than any other sport.
By a mile. And the sheer volume of games is designed specifically to eliminate the statistical noise of luck. Meaning, over a few weeks, a terrible team can get hot and beat a great team. It happens all the time.
Sure, any given Sunday, or Tuesday in this case.
Exactly. But over 6 months and 162 games, luck evaporates.
Cream rises to the top.
The standings reflect a brutal, mathematical truth about who is truly excellent. Analysts often look at something called run differential.
Run differential. What's the simple definition for our listeners?
It's the total number of runs a team scores over the entire season, minus the total number of runs they allow.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
All right, so if a team has a run differential of, say, plus 250, they aren't just winning games. They are systematically dismantling their opponents night after night.
They have proven their absolute elite quality.
Undeniably.
So the 162-game season is designed to find the objectively best teams in the world through sheer exhausting attrition.
Yes.
But how does an East versus West bracket destroy that meritocracy? Walk me through the math of how the journey suddenly supersedes the quality.
Okay, let's construct a hypothetical scenario under this proposed geographical split.
Okay.
Let's say that in a given year, by sheer coincidence of roster building and talent, the 3 absolute best teams in the sport teams with massive run differentials, historically great pitching staffs,
Yeah.
and over 100 wins each,
Heavyweights.
the heavyweights. Let's say they all happen to reside on the East Coast.
Okay.
Under a traditional balanced format designed to find the true champion, those three juggernauts should theoretically have a pathway to meet in the final ultimate rounds of the tournament.
Right. You want the heavyweights fighting for the ultimate crown. You want the teams who proved their dominance over 162 games to be rewarded with the chance to prove it against each other at the very end.
Exactly. But an East versus West format creates isolated, rigid ecosystems.
Ah, I see.
Those three elite 100-win teams in the East are forced into a geographical bloodbath. They have to play each other in the early rounds.
Oh, wow. So by design, two of the absolute best teams in the sport will be eliminated prematurely.
Solely because of their zip code.
That is brutal.
It is. And meanwhile, look at the Western bracket. The talent pool in the West might be incredibly diluted that year.
So the best team in the West might only have, what, 85 wins?
85 wins and maybe even a negative run differential.
Yikes.
Yet, because the bracket guarantees a Western representative in the final, that mediocre team skates through a soft, unchallenging path directly to the championship series.
Just like the reality TV contestant who gets swapped onto the beach with all the food.
Exactly. The journey mattered more than the quality.
The 85-win team advanced not because they mastered the 162-game endurance test, but because they survived the artificial tribal swap of the bracket.
They coasted, while the 100-win team starved each other out on the other side of the island.
Which fundamentally degrades the integrity of the championship itself.
It really does. If an audience knows that the team representing the West in the final is only there because the Western ecosystem was weak, the matchup loses its legitimacy
The championship stops being a definitive crowning of the best team in the sport.
and instead becomes a hollow fulfillment of the bracket's formatting requirements.
You sacrifice the actual validity of the competition just to achieve that cleaner structure that looks good on a promotional poster.
It's a terrifying trade-off for any legacy institution.
It really is. You gain the immediate, easily digestible narrative of East Coast versus West Coast, but you accidentally hollow out the foundational fairness that made people respect the institution to begin with.
And the analysis doesn't just stop at the mechanical failures.
Right. It pivots to an emotional casualty that I found even more fascinating.
The dilution of meaning.
Yes. The text explicitly warns that restructuring the league to create more of these intense regular season games risks flattening rivalries into repetition.
Turning something meaningful into something frequent.
But wait, this feels like a massive paradox of demand to me.
How so?
Well, let's say you have two historic franchises that absolutely despise each other.
Like the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Right, or the Dodgers and the Giants. The fans crave that matchup. The television networks crave that matchup.
It's guaranteed ratings.
Exactly. So if people love a great rivalry, why wouldn't they want it served to them constantly? How does giving the consumer more of exactly what they want suddenly become a bad thing?
This touches on the fundamental economics of human anticipation.
Okay, break that down for me.
It's the delicate balance between scarcity and frequency. The analysis is pointing out that a rivalry isn't just about two teams wearing different laundry.
Right.
It derives its emotional weight entirely from the stakes. And stakes are inextricably linked to scarcity.
Ah, so if something happens every day, it ceases to be an event.
Exactly.
We were talking earlier, before we recorded, about the solar eclipse. Humanity is fascinated by a total solar eclipse.
Oh, absolutely.
People will book flights a year in advance, buy special glasses, and talk about the cosmic alignment for weeks afterward.
Entirely, because it is incredibly rare.
Right. But if a total solar eclipse happened every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m.,
Within a month, nobody would even look out the window.
it would just become a mild logistical annoyance because you have to turn your headlights on during your commute.
Exactly. The phenomenon itself hasn't changed, but the frequency has completely eradicated the awe.
Wow, that is such a good point.
And sports rivalries operate on the exact same psychological principle.
The emotional explosion of a historic clash relies on it being a special high-stakes collision that fans have had to wait for.
Precisely. If you restructure the league into an East versus West format, specifically to force these heavyweights to play each other constantly,
To satisfy that modern NBA-style craving for constant weekly engagement,
yes, you commodify the hatred.
you commodify the hatred, you flatten it.
You take a matchup that feels like a generational battle, and you turn it into just another Tuesday on the calendar.
By artificially injecting frequency to chase television ratings, you accidentally destroy the very anticipation that made the television ratings so high in the first place.
It is the ultimate warning against manufacturing history.
You can't just engineer authentic emotion by rearranging the schedule.
No, you can't. True meaning requires breathing room. It requires distance, build-up, and, the prolonged agony of waiting.
The agony is the point.
Right. When the analysis warns against turning something meaningful into something frequent, it's highlighting how the pursuit of constant engagement inevitably leads to emotional burnout for the audience.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this entire debate, the final verdict.
The existential choice that transcends baseball.
Yeah, because if your ultimate goal is to modernize, to stay culturally relevant, then tearing down the Victorian walls and building the open concept, East versus West loft, makes perfect sense.
It is bold, it is clean, and it satisfies the shrinking attention span of the modern consumer.
But if the soul of the game lives in its uniqueness and its refusal to operate like the NBA or the NFL, then maybe the convoluted structure isn't actually what is broken.
Maybe the identity of the institution is just being grossly misunderstood by the people trying to monetize it.
That phrase right there, maybe the identity is just being misunderstood, that is the philosophical anchor of the text, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It asks leaders to critically evaluate whether they are fixing a flaw or systematically dismantling the brand's core differentiator.
And the source concludes with this incredibly evocative metaphor. Because not every remix makes the original better, but the ones that matter force you to decide what you were really listening to all along.
It's brilliant.
Let's unpack that for a second. Think about a revered, acoustically perfect historic theater.
Good.
It's known for showcasing nuanced, complex acoustic performances that require an audience to sit quietly and truly listen.
Right. A very specific type of experience.
But management looks at the revenue of a massive standardized multiplex down the street and panics. They decide the historic theater isn't relevant anymore.
Oh, no.
So they gut the acoustics, rip out the velvet seats, install massive subwoofers, and turn it into a thumping 120 beats per minute franchise nightclub.
And the immediate metrics will absolutely validate the decision.
You think so?
Oh, for sure. The foot traffic will spike. The beverage sales will go through the roof. It becomes loud, urgent, and accessible to a casual crowd walking off the street.
But you've completely lost the nuance.
Exactly.
You've alienated the dedicated audience that valued the acoustics, and you've turned a unique cultural landmark into just another loud room.
You've achieved relevance by sacrificing your soul.
Man.
This is what business strategists call a strategy of assimilation.
Assimilation.
Yes. When the analysis critiques baseball for potentially mimicking the NBA's structure, it's warning against assimilation. Assimilation is looking at the market leader and saying, look, we are just like them. We have an East and a West, too.
But in the long term, assimilation degrades your unique market position.
Because if a consumer wants a fast-paced, highly structured, instantly gratifying, geometrically perfect sports experience.
The NBA already provides a flawless version of that product.
Exactly. If baseball tries to compete on those exact same terms, utilizing the exact same geographical structures, it will always be perceived as a slower, lesser version of basketball.
So baseball's true competitive moat is its profound asymmetry.
It's weirdness.
Its daily grinding rhythm, the fact that its fields don't even have standardized dimensions.
Right. By choosing to hold on to that uniqueness, it positions itself not as a competitor to the NBA, but as the essential alternative.
Its refusal to look like everything else.
Exactly.
I mean, every brand, every leader, every legacy institution eventually hits this crossroads. Do you want to be a slightly more profitable, heavily diluted version of someone else?
Or do you possess the courage to be the authentic, albeit occasionally misunderstood, version of yourself?
And the tragedy is that realizing your quirky structure is your identity is often a deeply painful process for leadership.
The pressure from external stakeholders, television networks, sponsors, casual fans, it is immense.
They want the techno remix.
They demand the clean, modular shelving, because you can measure the success of modular shelving on a quarterly spreadsheet.
But you cannot easily quantify the value of historical resonance.
Right.
Or meritocratic integrity.
No, you can't. Which is why this text is so crucial.
Let's trace the incredible path we've taken through this analysis today. We started by acknowledging the undeniable siren song appeal of the East versus West format.
We examined how a cleaner, binary structure eliminates cognitive load, providing a direct and urgent narrative that perfectly aligns with modern consumer psychology.
Right. And then we explored the profound philosophical resistance to that modernization. We redefined holding on not as stubborn obsolescence, but as the preservation of luxury and legacy.
We looked at the historical wars over the designated hitter and the wild card to show that baseball's foundational philosophy is built on endurance and timelessness, not constant adaptation.
Then we got into the mechanical dirt. We broke down how a 162-game season uses run differential and sheer volume to find true excellence.
And how forcing that system into an East versus West bracket creates uneven paths,
We saw how it turns a pure meritocracy into a reality TV tribal swap.
where a 100-win juggernaut is eliminated early by geography, and an 85-win mediocre team skates to the finals, destroying the integrity of the championship.
From there, we examined the psychological danger of emotional dilution.
We used the scarcity of the solar eclipse to demonstrate how flattening historic rivalries into frequent, repetitive matchups just to chase ratings actually destroys the anticipation and meaning of those events entirely.
And we arrived at the ultimate realization. The perilous choice between short-term relevancy through assimilation and long-term survival through unique identity.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. And for you listening right now, whether you are leading a massive corporate restructuring, trying to reinvent your personal brand, or even just looking at the daily habits and routines in your own life, the lesson embedded in this analysis is vital.
Very much so.
Before you tear down the walls of your Victorian house just because a modern loft looks cleaner on Instagram, you must ruthlessly evaluate what you are giving up.
Do not throw away the complex, antique mahogany of your organization simply because it is difficult to organize.
And the brilliance of the source text is its neutrality, really.
Right. It never explicitly demands that the sport reject change.
No. It simply demands that the institution understands the true catastrophic cost of the change it is considering.
Know what you are sacrificing before you sign the contract.
Yes. The text leaves us with the thought that the remixes that truly matter change how you hear the original forever.
It's profound.
So here is a final question for you to mull over as you navigate your own professional and personal landscapes today.
Look closely at the institutions you belong to.
The traditions you uphold, or the unique, slightly chaotic processes in your own work that you are currently tempted to modernize or remix for the sake of efficiency.
If you successfully strip away that old, complicated structure, will the new efficiency reveal the pure essence of what you were really trying to achieve all along?
Or will you realize, entirely too late, that the quirky, frustrating old structure was actually the music itself?
Wow.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. It has been an absolute privilege unpacking this complex, fascinating debate with you.
Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone listening.
Until next time, keep questioning the remixes in your own life, and never be afraid to hold on to the history that makes you unique. Take care.